Okay, so this is a chessboard problem. I'm a fan of chess. I mean, I like playing chess at all. It might not be true for all of you who are watching this recording, but I'm a big fan of chess. I'm not a very good player. I play decent, but then I had a smile in my face when I looked at this question in CAD. So these kind of things sometimes happen. It was very fun for me anyhow. So I'll get into the question now without wasting too much of your time. So this is an 8x8 chessboard. A queen placed anywhere can attack any other piece if the piece is present in the same row, same column, or in any diagonal position in any possible four directions, provided there is no other piece in between in the path from the queen to that piece. Now, this is typically what will happen if you have a question related to chess or even a card game, any kind of sports which is not supposed to be known by all of us. In cat, if they are using that particular game, the game itself, not the board or something. So if the question is related to board itself, the 8x8 board, then that need not be elaborated very too much. But then if there's a movement of queen related thing, so that will be elaborated. So if you're not aware of it, just read it properly, you will understand it. And those who are aware of it also read it properly, because once you're reading this, this is what happened in my mind. When I'm reading this, I know that there is something in the set that is going to happen related to the movement of the queen. Until unless that is happening, the set is not going to explain that. So we have the movement of the queen explained. So let me understand and relate this to you. So there's an 8x8 board. I'm not going to draw the entire thing, just a piece of it, let's say. And the queen can attack. So let's say the queen is here or something. So queen can attack anything on this row, anything on the column, and anything on the diagonal that the queen is on. So there will be more squares on this part because I've not drawn the entire thing. But it's not mandatory that the diagonal always has to be the diagonal of the square. It was just because I selected this position and it falls in the diagonal of the square. That is why it's happening. Let me draw a few more squares to explain what I'm saying. Just consider this to be squares. I'm just trying to explain this. So suppose I place the queen here. This is not part of the diagonal of the square, right? This particular square. When I say diagonal of the square means diagonal of the entire board. This square is not part of the diagonal of the board, right? But then this is part of this diagonal as well as this diagonal, right? It is part of both of these diagonals, right? And it can hit on the columns, it can hit on the rows. So that is what is mentioned, right? So this is how the movement of the queen and the attack goes. That's what is mentioned. So let me take this thing off as of now. Let me continue reading this. So yeah, provided there is no other piece in between. This is also important in the path from the queen to that piece. So there should not be any other piece in between. So if the queen is here, let's say there is another piece here, let's say a pawn or something, and there's a bishop here. Now this might be a diagonal, but then if the pawn is blocking this diagonal, then the queen can attack this pawn, but not the bishop. So there should not be a piece in between. So this is what is explained here. The columns are labeled A to H from left to right. So A to H from left to right. And the rows are numbered 1 to 8, bottom to top. Again, who are chess players, this might be pretty obvious to you. But this is the part where if you're not aware of the game, then it's better you do at least this much. Just draw, or not even this large a square. So just for your reference, just draw a small one and just do this much. On the leftmost side, write an A. Rightmost side, write an H. Bottommost, you write the 1, and topmost, you write the 8. This is what is mentioned, right? A to H, left to right. So the leftmost will be A, rightmost will be H. 1 to 8, bottom to top. So as soon as you look back on this part, you would be able to figure out which one is the left side and which one is the right side on the basis of the numbering. So this is what has been mentioned in the next sentence as well. The position of a piece is given by the combination of column and row labels. So so the columns are which one? The A, B, C. These are the columns, right? Because that is how the numbering is going. So this is A, the leftmost column. Then this is B. Then this is C, and so on. and the rows goes as 1, 2, 3, and so on, right? So if it says that the position is C5, then it is on the Cth column and the fifth row. Again, elaborately explained. So I'm not going too much into it. So this is basically the description of the movement and the board, because this is pretty obvious now that will be something related to it. So let's get the questions now, and we'll solve it on the basis of the questions. So let's get the questions now. Yeah. So the fifth question asks if the queen is at c5 and the other pieces are at this position, how many are under attack by the queen? There are no other pieces on the board. Okay. Let me go through the questions once. What type of questions do we have? If the other pieces are only at positions, so this should be A1, I believe. A1, A3, A4, D7, H7, and A8. Then which of the following positions of the queen results in the maximum number of pieces being under attack? Wow. I would say 6 is tougher than 5, because for 5 at least from C5 I can think of what are the values or which pieces that the queen attacking. But for these ones, for question number 6, it's asking, I hope you understood the question. It says the other pieces are at these positions. So these are the pieces in each of these positions. There is one piece. Then which of the following positions of the queen results in a maximum number of pieces being under attack? So this is something to do. I mean, you have to evaluate the options and figure out which one is attacking the most number of pieces. So I would say 6 is a little calculative than 5th. Let's look at the other one. 7th is asking for the other pieces are only at position this. Then how many positions the queen cannot attack any of the pieces? Wow. So this is also similar to the previous one. Okay, let me check this. Yeah, for question number 6 and question number 7, both of these we have the pieces are at the same position, right? So the reason I'm checking this out is if you look at question number 6, it says these are the position, these are the pieces on this position, and in 7th also the same thing. The other pieces are only at position this. The same type of question is not the same type, but the orientation of the board is same, right? The only variation is that in this question we are looking for the queen attacking the maximum number of pieces, and in this question we're looking for how many positions the queen cannot attack any of the pieces. So I believe for these two questions, for question number 6 and 7, I might have to actually draw the board. So not for 5. There's something going on in my mind for 5. I'll come to that. But for 6 and 7, I might have to draw the board. It might be convenient because there are the same pieces. I mean, the same positions are taking the pieces. Okay, let's look at 8 as well. So suppose the queen is the only piece on the board and it is at position D5. In how many positions can another piece be placed on the board such that it is safe from attack from the queen? Yes. So again, I don't need to draw the board for 5 and 8. So let's start with 5 and 8. I don't need to draw the board because this is what is happening in my mind. Let me just elaborate this, or let me elaborate this with this diagram itself. Check this out. I mean, suppose the queen is at column A, right? So first of all, it can attack anyone who is on column A, as long as that there is another piece not blocking the view of the queen or something like that. So apart from that, I mean, you can attack anything on the column that the queen is. So being on the same column, what does that imply, or how do we infer that from the position name or the position number? If it is the same column, it should be the same letter, right? Anybody who is in the A column will have the A letter in its position name, right? So same column is same letter, right? Similarly, if you have the same row, you will have the same number, right? So these are very easy ones. Now, what about the diagonals? There could be a diagonal attack as well. So let me draw some diagonals here, or let me take a random value to start with. So let's say this is A1. Now, how would the diagonal go? In order to go to the next cell, I need to move one right and one up, right? So that will make this value as B2, because once I move one right, the column is increasing by one and the number is also increasing by one. So if I go in this direction, then I hope you can see that the letter value is increasing by one and the number value is increasing by one. So let me mark this somehow. Same increase in letter and number. Now it could be increase, or the other way around, it could be decrease. So let me not write increase. So same change, let's say. If you go back, that will be decreases, right? So same change in letter and number. So that will arrive on this diagonal, right? I mean, even if you compare something like, let's say, start off with something like A3, for example. So A3, if I need to go in this direction, I need to go to B, and then I need to go to 4, right? So this will be 4. So this will be B4, isn't it? So you see that A to B, there's a one change, and 3 to 4 is also a one change. So same letter, same change in letter or number will give us this side of diagonal. But what about the other side? So if I check this side out, so again, let me take a random value. So let's take this one. Let's say this is G4 or something. I'm just putting a random. So G4 is, yeah. So let's say G4. No issue. So don't consider this is the base. There are some cells below it also. Now, what happens if I move to this particular cell? So I'm moving back one column. So before G, we have F, but we are moving up one row. So this will be in the row 5. So this particular cell will be F5, right? So G to F, there is a decrease in letter, but there's an increase in number, but the change is equal again. So same idea will work, right? So the change, I don't care whether both are plus, both are minus. It could be that one is plus, one is minus. Like G to F, there's a reduction in one. 4 to 5, there's an increase of one. It could be a plus and minus combination also. So for the diagonal movement, I'll just take a note like this. I'll just keep a note like this. Just let me take this off first. So for the diagonal movements, I could write same diagonal, but I'll just write it in this way. Equal change in letter and number. Great. So this is done. Now let us focus on this 5 and 8. Now 5 is asking for if the queen is at position C5. So let me take a random place here. So let's say this is C5. And the other pieces are at positions C2, G1, G3, G5, and A3. So first of all, I can straight away see that it is attacking C2 for sure, because C2 will be somewhere below. It is definitely attacking G5 because it will be somewhere on the right of C5. What else do we have? So we have these other things. So let's take these. So we have G1, we have G3, and we have A3. Right. So these are not in the same row, neither in the same column. So these two are working. G5 and C2 is definitely working. So let's test the other ones out. So I'm comparing C5 with G1. So C to G, so D, E, F, G, right? So there's a +4. And 5 to 1, there's a -4. As long as the change is equal, that will be in the same diagonal. So G1 is definitely under attack from C5. So there's a +4, -4 idea going. So this is definitely under attack. I can straight away eliminate G3, right? Because that is not going to happen. I've already figured this out in the previous case. This is +4, but this is -2. There is not an equal change. So this is not under attack. So we can eliminate this case. So this is out. Let me just keep that thing. Yeah. And now let us test the A3. So I'm just writing the C5 on this part, doesn't matter. So if you check this, 3 and 5 has a difference of 2. +2 -2 doesn't matter. So let's just look at the change. A and C also has a difference of 2. So this is also matching. So this A3 is also under attack. So if you look at it, there are a total of 1, 2, 3, and 4 pieces which are under attack. And because now if you consider there's a row and column, you cannot have a piece coming in between, because then that row number will also be, I mean, that suppose there is another piece here. So that will also have the row number 5. That is not there in any of the other cases. Similarly, if there is another piece on the C column, that will have C in its name, right? So definitely these two are not getting blocked by some other piece. And even in this case, now that equal change, I mean plus plus minus minus and comparison between plus minus and minus plus comes into play. So if you look at this part, the C to G is an increase and 5 to 1 is a decrease. So this diagonal will be something like this, right? A decreasing kind of thing. I mean, you move from C to G, but you go from 5 to 1. So this is C5, this position, let's say, and G1, or let me put it in better. I hope you understand this. C5 and G1. So C is here, 5 is here, and G1 will be below, and this. So this will be a diagonal like this. And the C5 to A3 connection, so A3, wherever it is, from A to C, you have to move rightwards, and from 3 to 5, you have to move upwards, right? So the C5 will be in this sort of diagonal. So that is in this diagonal, that is in this diagonal. So you cannot have the piece blocking each other until unless they are in the same diagonal, right? So each of these four pieces are under attack. So that is the answer for question number 5. Now let us look at the next one. This is 4. Okay, now let's look at 8. So 8 is asking for, suppose the queen is the only piece on the board and it is at position d5. In how many position can another piece be placed on the board such that it is safe from the attack? So first of all, let us figure it out in this way. How many squares it is not safe at? This is something we can utilize the same idea, right? Wherever the queen can attack, it will attack, right? So let's take a random place for d5 here. So let's say this square denotes the d5. Now, first thing, which is very easy, in the same row, you will have 7 more squares because this is one of them, and each row has 8 squares, each column has 8 squares. The same diagonal, again, you'll have 7 of this. So you have the 7 and 7 in the same row and the same column. So let's keep that aside. So the row and column is pretty easy to figure out. Now coming to the diagonal. So let me place this a little more central. Let's place the d5 here. Yeah. Now what we know is from this idea, there has to be an equal change in letter and number, right? So if you check this type of diagonal, see the letter, the D letter can increase to a maximum of H, right? So D to H, E, F, G, H. So that's an increase of 4. But the number can increase from 5 to 8. So 5 to 8, that's an increase of 3. Now you have to always take the minimum of it, right? You cannot go outside the board. So the minimum of this is 3. So there will be 3 squares on this side. And on this side, let's check this out. You can go to a minimum of A and you can go to a minimum of 1, right? In terms of number. So D to A, there's a decrease of C, B, A. So that's a decrease of 3. And from 5 to 1, there's a decrease of 4, right? So there's a decrease of 4, there's a decrease of 3. We have to pick the the minimum one. The minimum one is 3. Don't consider the side. So there are 3 squares here as well, right? So there are 3 squares here. There are 3 squares here. So effectively, you have 6 more squares on this diagonal. So let's take the note of that as well. So there are 6 more squares on this diagonal. And finally, let's look at the other diagonal. So for the other diagonal, something like this. Now, for this diagonal, when I'm looking at this particular, whatever it could be, we could, for the letter part, I can reduce it to A. And for the number, I can increase this, because I hope you understand that for the number, the row wise, we are going upwards, right? So we can go up to 8 or something. So for the letter point of view, D to A, if you check this out, so from D to A, there's a reduction of 3. And from 5 to 8, there's an increase of 3. So just look at the changes now. Both are equal, so it doesn't matter. So now there are 3 squares on this side. And if you look at this part, so in terms of letters, we are moving rightwards for column wise. So if you're moving rightwards, the letter value will increase. So this can go up to maximum of H. And from the number point of view, we're going downwards. So that's a lower value of row. So that will go to something like 1. So effectively, what we can say is D to H, we can increase by what? E, F, G, H. So that is 4 increases. And 5 to 1 also, it could be 4 decreases. So 4 and 4, so that's a total of, or rather, I mean, we can pick either one of them. So we can change it by four squares, right? So effectively what we know is in this diagonal, apart from this square, there are 3 on this side and 4 on this side. So that makes 7 more squares, which is under attack. So these are the squares which are under attack from the queen. Don't forget the square that the queen is on. So the queen cannot attack herself. So there are total of these many squares which the queen may attack or ask or is occupying herself. So you have a total of, I think you can imagine this as 7 also. There are 4 7, so you get a total of 28 squares which are not under not attack, something like that. I mean, it's a combination of two types. So it's either safe from the queen, or it's under attack from the queen, or the queen is occupying itself. So you have a total of 64 minus this 28, so that is 36 squares which are safe from the queen, right? So that will be an answer of 36. So option C. So these two are pretty easy. If you understand this idea as fast you can solve this question very quickly. So let's look at the next two questions now. So for question number 6 and 7, I've just taken this part of the board. So I'm just going to draw the board now. First thing, when I'm drawing this, I'm drawing this as you would attempt it with pen and paper. I mean, pen on paper, something like that. Now, this is a trick that my one of my class teachers, when I was in class 5 or something, she taught me. A good application of GP series. So I'm trying to draw a 8x8 board, right? So check this out. This is more accurate than not. Half of half of halves are 1/8, right? So if you have this habit, then it's not very tough to draw a chessboard. You can easily, complete a chessboard in no time. So I'm just doing half and half and half. So this is more than not an accurate display of a chessboard, right? So now let us mark few things. So this is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now let us look at the positions, because this is why we drew the chessboard. 6 and 7 has the pieces on the same positions. So let us mark the positions by dots or something like that. So A1 is one of the position. A3 is one of the positions. B4 is another position. D7 is another position. H7 is another position. And finally, H8 is another position, right? Now, for question number 6, we need to find the position on which, if the queen is kept, it attacks the maximum number of pieces, right? Which ideally, I mean, in order to solve that question, you need to, use the options, right? You have to figure this out. So, but for question number 7, what we have to do is we have to find the number of positions on the chessboard where the queen cannot attack any of these pieces from. So that can be handled. Not very. It's not a very tough thing to do. All you have to imagine is the diagonals, etc. So first of all, let us do something. So let us just use these things, or let me start with the rows and columns. So that might be easy. So let me draw this with a lighter version, or you can just do this with the pen itself, but with a very light movement. Don't push it hard. Just move with your pen very lightly. So let me do that. So I'm just drawing the rows first. Then the columns. I mean, only the rows and the columns where there are pieces. Okay, do not draw anything extra. Now, while you're drawing the diagonals, please try to move from the vertices. So do not miss them out. So let's see how am I doing this. So just connecting the vertices, that's all. There might be tilted lines or not. It doesn't matter. So just follow along with the vertices. So I'm drawing the upward sloping diagonals first. So this one is something like this on this side as well as from that side. Do not miss that out. And finally, there is only one piece left whose diagonal we have not yet considered. So this, right? And the other side of the diagonal. So this is not on the other side of any diagonal. This is part of something. Just try to do this as accurately you can, but don't waste too much time on it. Just try to connect the vertices. That's it, of each small square that you're passing through. Now this will indicate a lot of things. So this is also not part of any diagonal of this slope. So these are indicating few things here. Number one, just look at the ones which are not falling under any of these lines. So if you look at these points here, this square, this square, this square, and this square, everything except of this, except for these four squares, there is some or the other line passing through it, right? What does that imply? So if a queen is somewhere here, let's say, it's at least attacking this piece, right? So a queen cannot be placed here. So I hope you remember the question. The question number 7 is my main focus. So queen cannot attack any of the pieces. So the ones where these lines, these small lines that I've drawn, are not passing through. None of the lines are passing through. Those are the squares where the queen cannot attack any of the pieces. So that itself is answering me the question. So you have, I'm just marking this again so you can check the entire board. Everywhere you have a line, right? So this is also there. So only for these four squares, you don't have any, any piece under attack, right? So the answer for this question should be 4 in that case. Now, coming to the question number 6, we can again use the same lines for this particular question. We are looking for the position of the queen for which the maximum number of these pieces are under attack. So all you have to do is just look at the particular square in the option and look at how many of these small lines. So how many of these lines are passing through that square. For example, if you look at this square, there are 2 lines passing through it, right? So effectively what we can say is there will be definitely 2 pieces which are under attack. It cannot be more than 2. Please understand that. So let me take an example. If you take this example, let me use a different color here. So suppose the queen is here, or let me write this Q. So the queen is here. Now you can see there's just one line passing through it, right? You might consider that there are 2 pieces on this diagonal, but if you remember that point, until and unless something is blocking it. So this piece is not under attack by the queen because this piece is blocking the attack, right? So effectively, the number of lines will always determine. So I hope you can see now that this square has just one line passing through it. So effectively, the queen will attack only one piece, not more than one. So the number of lines passing through that particular square will indicate the number of pieces the queen is attacking. So now let us look at the options. So if you look at F8 first of all, so let's look at F8. F8 is F here, 8 here. So there are 2 lines passing through it. F8, 2 pieces will be under attack. A7 is also 2 pieces. So we can eliminate both of these options because both cannot be the answer. C1 is again 2, right? So this also cannot be the answer. D3 should be the answer. Let's check this out. So D3, yes. Now I hope you can see there is 1, 2, and 3 lines passing through it, right? So from D3, you can attack this piece. I hope you can see that. Let me write a queen for it. You can attack this piece. You can attack this piece. This was not drawn appropriately, but I hope you understood that. And also you can attack this piece. So basically the number of lines passing through that square will indicate the answer. So D3 is having the maximum lines passing through it. So the answer for this is option D, D3. So that's it for this set. Let's analyze this now. Okay, so coming to the analysis of it. Now how to put this? See, first of all, if you can identify this idea, the same column, same letter, and same number, same row, and the diagonal especially. So this idea, because this I believe many of you can figure it out. It's not very tough to do. But the diagonal thing, if you understand that, the slope sort of idea that I took up, If you figured it out, then question number 5 and question number 8 you can solve very quickly. So in that way, I can say that the paper is not at all tough. I mean, the set is not at all tough. But coming to 6 and 7, so it's not tough to do, it's just time consuming. It might also happen for few people that you did not understand that line idea that I talked about, so the intersection lines and everything. So effectively you keep on counting how many pieces are they attacking. So for question number 6 and 7, some of you might have drawn different chessboards individually. That might become a little too time consuming. But in terms of, if I want to rate this particular set in terms of difficulty, I would rate, purely because of the question number 6 and 7, I would rate it in the category of easy to medium. I would not call this easy, I would not call this medium, but somewhere ranging in that particular range, two categories. So I would rate this easy to medium, and the ideal time for this particular set. So again, I would not classify an overall ideal time similar as the previous previous set, but you might be looking at each of them separately. But the ideal time to solve this particular set would be, I would say, for question number 5 and 8, somewhere around 3 to 4 minutes, and for question number 6 and 7, the other two, would again take somewhere around 3 to 4 minutes. So in total, somewhere around 6 to 8 minutes. But then it depends a little bit on your comfortability. This one might actually go to 5 minutes, but then ideally, as I talked about earlier, so ideally speaking, so it should take somewhere around 3 to 4 minutes for question number 5 and 8, because those are the first two questions you solve after reading the set. So reading the set time is also involved here. And 6 and 7 would again take somewhere around 3 to 4 minutes. But the other good part of this particular set is that you can treat this as a DI set, right? I mean, you don't solve anything in the set itself. So it's not mandatory you solve all the 4 questions. You can just quickly solve 5 and 8, move to the next sets, and then come back and if you have like 4 or 5 minutes remaining at the end of it, and you have only LR sets left, now you know that you cannot solve an LR set completely in those remaining 4 minutes or something. In that case, you can just now attempt question number 6 and 7 later on. So that might work in favor of your strategy. But then 5 and 8 is definitely something you should have done if you have read the set and not have been afraid by looking at the chessboard, Tom. But anyhow, hope you enjoyed this. Thank you.